It's 11:53 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and the news is breaking all over itself. Donald J. Drumpf, the originator of birtherism, the scam artist behind several failed and bankrupted casinos, and the stable genius that brought you steaks in a box and what was that other thing that he sold? Oh, right, a university that was an entirely willful scam on the face of it and in the meat and bones of it as well. Has just broken the news all over itself with the breaking news that he, the hoaxster-in-chief, and the delightful First Lady have tested positive for the hoax China coronavirus that he was dead certain would go away in April. That has killed 200,000+ people in just 6 months. More than most of the United States' previous land wars combined. Not all of them, but a vast plurality of them, of those wars, you know. So it's like, it's not the most deadly thing on the planet. Duh. I'm not an alarmist, right? Don't get me wrong, folks. Hello. Welcome to Late Night Thoughts with your wild and eccentric and sometimes quite eager to jibber-jabber host, the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo. Technically, an artificial life form from another dimension. If I was allowed to say robot from the future, I would. But I'm not, so I won't. But I digress. All of that fanciful metafiction backstory nonsense set aside, we're having a very, very, very real moment here in Trumptopia. And the world is, like, listening in. The great orange chosen one that at one point declared COVID-19, a.k.a. coronavirus, a.k.a. the Rona, a.k.a. COVID-19, a.k.a. that other actual scientific name that I always forget how it goes when I don't have it in front of me, that is the real name for the virus that causes the symptomology that we call COVID-19. It's October 1st, Thursday, 11:57 p.m. And I am here, my friends, to share with you, just in case you haven't heard, you heard it first here, I'm honored. That just means you didn't have your television or your radio on and you just didn't look at anything else on any other screen first. But Donald Trump and Melania have tested positive for COVID-19. And the world is wrestling with this breaking news in all kinds of wonky and deliciously delightful, almost ridiculous ways. But first, may I say that let us take a moment to honor the fact that hoax or otherwise, black flag operation or genuine, authentic, sort of mid-level pandemic, or some kind of they're gonna butcher us all in a satanic ritual, artificial aliens are in control, but it's really the robots' pandemic of sheep herding, whatever the fuck is going on. The big orange chosen one that used to say this was a hoax, like, that used to dismiss this into the sort of like, it's all part of the conspiracy theories are true bucket, hoax, has tested for it. And you know, and please forgive me for not being able to help myself in repeating this. It's already been repeated. This has already been memeified. I didn't hit this meme first. But you can't get it if you don't test for it. Because he gets tested for it every effing day. How come it took that long for him to get it? Okay, too many questions, too many thoughts. Let's take a brief moment of seriousness to get grounded, because my show, despite everything, is, of course, about the intersectionality of world events, political theory, conspiracy theory, psyop theory, esoteric theory, mysticism theory, etc., 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 et al. And its nexus where I think if we thread the needle of middle path through all extremes, we get to the most plausible thing that's actually going on. And if that's the case, if that is what's actually going on, then a bunch of people have actually passed away from this ridiculously kind of annoying, aggressively contagious real disease that really came about from whatever the fuck reasons it came about, near and or about that one particular province we all love and adore now in China. But it is not categorically their fault because we're not all racists about it. But we're saying is like, it's a real disease, right? And real people have actually died. And as has been my most recent sort of new tradition on the show, join me for one hot second, taking a moment of silence for all those who are no longer with us, whether they're really dead or they're all in some other sort of psyop village of make-believe where they're doing some other level of the game, but they're no longer here with us now because of this COVID-19. A brief moment, please. Namaste. Thank you for joining me in that. As I was saying, the one who he alone could fix it all, I'm just using his own words against him, folks. The king has quarantined himself in the White House because of the hoaxy virus that was invented by the Democrats to ruin his reelection. Now, I don't know if that's a self-fulfilling prophecy or what, but let's take a look at what's going on. The Q sliver of the Trump base, according to my guy on the inside, who doesn't realize he's my guy on the inside, although he does, I'm sure. And if he's listening, you know who you are, buddy. I love you. Please forgive me. Ho'oponopono. But I think the PSYOP is a vice grip. You all are getting played against everybody else as part of the multivis vice grip. And the only reason I exclude myself from the whole apparatus is because I think that Mother Nature is not part of it. That Mother Nature is Mother Nature. And while we've shat on her a lot and paved her over and whatnot, she's still right there, right in front of us, being Mother Nature. And no matter how wicked sick or crazy cuckoo nutjob insane any of us might be, we are all children of that goddess. Even Trump, poor bastard, no matter what he believes himself to be. And by his own account, I think he believes himself to be the temporary king of Trumptopia, which is like whenever you become the president of America, a la President Nixon. Also, heads up to anybody that's on my Instagram account. I know there's a typo, but that's sort of like a happy accident that happened. And I'm like, that's how I'll fictionalize the short story bit. I'll put typos in all the names and it'll be cute. So never mind that it's President Nikon. I meant President Nixon, or rather, temporary King Nixon. I really think that Trump, at some degree, some level, based on his own words and just the look on his face. I don't listen to the pundits, you guys. I am the pundit, right? This is my show. I'm not trying to here to regurgitate you. I do watch and skim through all the channels at least 3 times a day. And sometimes I sit down and really pay attention. But I do that in a, it's all a psyop of psyops kind of way. I'm not a fool. I also sort of note when they're close or close enough to what actually happens, or what actually seems to happen in, that place called reality that we all share. And here's the kicker, folks. The secret to the late night thoughts of my mind. No matter what political ideology you come with, I humbly invite you to sit and unpack it all and join me on an epic look back across the last 3 years. It's been my real-time documentary, audio blog, passion project of here are my thoughts on what I think this artificial tanned reality TV star president of a guy is really doing, no matter what anybody else is saying, because I'm not being influenced, in my humble opinion, by any of the ray beam, laser beams, 5G, alien space technology stuff that everyone else is being bombarded with, because asterisks, double crucifix, emoji face of stroke the chin, and then the next guy with the little monocle. All y'all are, including all you Q-head Trump heads and everybody wearing the masks before wearing masks was cool. Y'all getting strung by the nose. The whole species is, except for the idiots and the fools and the crazy ones and the magicians and the ones that look at nature and go, that's so much more real than what's on anything else, on any platform. And if I really engage with her, Pachamama, Gaia, the womb itself, the giver of life, the more I might actually resonate with what our very ill and ailing species truly needs, as opposed to any debate from a political, ideological, sociological, construct-based perspective, right? And so that doesn't mean I'm judging everybody else in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying that's where I'm coming from. I'm not defending any politician because I don't support any politician necessarily. Do I have a preference as to who remains in office? Most certainly. And am I honest with you about where I think it is and or is not plausibly plausible going? Yes. And do I take into account that, my sources are limited. I don't know everything that's going on in the world. I'm just a Yahoo with a podcast channel that I paid for with my last, scrap bits of money I made in the very unfair and corrupt and oppressive normal that was our quote-unquote normal before all of normality was disrupted by the big 2020 of 2020-ness. But on top of that, creatively speaking, if I may insert the flow of the meta-narrative, which is, I admit to you, a form of fictional literature that I'm writing, but the podcast is all my real political opinions in real, honest to goodness terms. I'm just role-playing the part of my character that I haven't fully deployed yet, that I'm slowly writing about, right? But as an observer that arrived here way back in the ye old ancient times and has been watching, and I say that jokingly, right? But I have been watching ever since I got here. Very much paying attention to stuff, not just at a political level, and I'm not the nerdy, push the glasses up, I can recite to you a litany of dates and facts and figures type. No, I'm doing like a broad spectrum procedural analysis. What the hell is wrong with all y'all? I'm a tourist here on your honky-dory little cutesy planet you're on that you're slowly throttling to death. And, I'm not from around these parts, but holy Moses, what the bloody double act hockey sticks are you all think you're doing with this living womb of yours that's supposed to give birth to life ongoingly and endearingly in a way that's meaningful for a sort of progress of evolutionary transcendence and like a cocoon the butterfly into a something else kind of level. And this is what you're hung up on. Okay, so I digress. That having all been said, can we take a deep breath and acknowledge that it was sort of obvious he was going to get sick? The big orange jerkwad has been acting like an asshat that didn't think it was actually really anything to worry about or take seriously, and doing everything that a numbnuts sort of smart enough to be his own downfall kind of guy that he is. Because I'm not saying he's stupid. I'm saying he's a numbnuts. I'm saying he's smart enough to be dangerous to his own well-being. He's really clever, and clever is a whole lot in horseshoes and bullshit, but it's not a lot in terms of survival. Unless you're really, wise about it. And wisdom is, no one's going to talk me into thinking that man's wise. Or divinely chosen. And on that note, I'm going to leave you with some music to think about it, because I think it's sort of obvious that if Donald Trump is anything, he is a living example of our own incarnate worst of us. He is all the sins walking around in one big fat horseshit breathing airbag of a man that just wants power and control and doesn't quite understand what else is important in the world, if I may be so bold as to say. Okay, that was a lot. But before I leave you with this music to think about it all my criticisms of him aside, brace yourselves, I'll be as brusque with any Democrat in office, because hello, Punch and Judy show, hashtag 2 wings, 1 bird. No hate at Joe Biden. I prefer him to win. That will make the next 4 years of my real life much more pleasant. Because all y'all on the right side, 12-12, ding, oh, you're way over there. Hold on a second. It's worth doing. On a full moon like this. Happy 12-12, everybody. Speaking of which, put a pin in this. Did you look at the moon tonight? Wowzers. Epic. Magic. And ultimately, no matter how you slice it, slightly more important and severely more real than most anything everybody is arguing about in all the cacophony of noise that is going on in our public discourse. Because it's all infinitely griping and moaning, and I admit it, I guess I'm still in on that shenanigans, but we're all sort of arguing about what we think is wrong with the world and fighting, we want to fight about it, hold on a second. That second moment of silence for those who have passed from COVID-19 and all other horrible things that people have died from in the last, every time people have died, because people are dying all over the place about all kinds of things, and it's not a freaking contest, you squirrel job of parroting the talking points from that particular sector of the echo chamber of echo chambers. Stop arguing. Friends and neighbors, lend me your ears. What was I saying? Oh, I was going to play some music. Right. Here. Let's pause, take a deep breath, and listen to this ridiculous piece of electronic fanfare that I have the legal right to publish under my own imaginary fictional character DJ name. For the purposes of my storytelling in the theater of your mind, imagine now that you've been listening to a talk show on a sort of like future radio program of the future. And then this is sort of like a live vidcast of audio sensationalism of some sort of future music noise that they make in the future, because it's all futurism in my show. Here it is. Funk Session 2 remix Hot Takes Political Shakes by DJ Zed from the album Starting Over, Volume Infinity. That's right, folks. In a book series I haven't laid out for you yet, over there on the Wattpad, I just got teasers up and I've been slowly churning the development writer's block into some sort of bootstrapping event of miraculous inspiration. And, spending a lot of time meditating and praying to the goddess's muse, all 9 of them. Or is it 28 of them? Or whatever. They just keep fractally unpacking. All infinity of the goddess's muse. Please, come on over. Red Rover, Red Rover. And it's happening a little bit, I think, if I may be honest with you. I got a cool idea for a short story of like a mythos. A fake mythology invented a la the Snow Train show movie. The movie, I think, I haven't finished watching that show. What's the name of that show about the train through the last train of everybody stuck on there forever because of the end of the world climate event? Great movie. Go watch it. Snowpiercer. Totally irrelevant movie review moment. No one's paying me to talk about this. It's just my random raw opinion. So, folks, it's October 2nd. And late in the day, we got the news that some of us have been quietly trying not to wish upon a thing, and others have been overtly praying for with voodoo dolls and candles and shit, I'm sure. The full spectrum of human behavior has probably swirled the drain around this topic. What does it really mean? First of all, it could be totally fake news. Trump is not beyond faking getting sick because he thinks it's going to help. I wouldn't put it past him. He once tried to sell people meat without ever understanding anything about being a butcher. I mean, come on. And it was horrible, rancid. He didn't even know where they had gotten it from, meat. I don't know the story. I'm exaggerating that. Please don't sue me. But it was a scam, right? Like, there were lawsuits and he lost. He once tried to tell people he was going to teach them in a university and that it was a real university. And it was not. That's not libel. That's a fact. That I'm fairly certain was like the truth. Unless we live in like a Sims video game, knock on wood, God forbid. Here's my take. Here's what I think. And I'm an entheogenic, cosmic, living, fractal consciousness voting machine. Like, our willpower and belief creates the universe just as much as what we perceive creates our universe inside. It's like a double mirror paradox of like, we're manifesting what destiny is projecting at us. Which is confusing to people. And trust me, if you didn't understand what I just said, it's fine. No one is going to judge you about it. But just listen to the rest of the show, and it'll eventually all make sense, because I spiral around that concept for days. Put a big fat pin on the corkboard of your mind of where you're taking notes of the crazy shit that we talk about together on this podcast. And it'll all... Imagine that's that place where the guy is in his man cave and he's stringing all the stringy bits together. We're doing that together. That's the core of this show. No matter what the cover art says, that's what we're doing. So, okay. As I'm reminded, because my computer is off and I meant to have this pulled up and I don't, and I just looked up to... Unless it's just sleepy. Doesn't matter. I had a conversation when this was literally breaking, and some people came at me with cue this and cue that, and brace yourself, it's going to be biblical. Which, I have something to say that I just said that I was like, I can't believe I'm typing this out loud. And we'll put a pin in that, because I'm not going to share that with you now. We'll come back to it. But if you're super curious, I don't think anybody's listening live, because no one ever does. But if you're super curious, when you do listen to this, dear, beloved listeners out there, because I live for you. Even on the days that I don't podcast, like, I'm obsessively worried about, like, what can I bring to you to tickle your minds and entertain you, and also make you want to meditate until we transcendentally fix all this bullshit together. Because I think that's the answer, right? So there it is. Right to it. Even when I'm not on the air, is the point. I worry about you guys, and I'm deeply concerned about whether or not what I'm talking about makes any sense to you. What the fuck was I saying? Oh, right. What is the most probable thing, given my worldview, my perspective, and my claim that I've been trying to maintain since the beginning of all of this, that I think it's a real virus. I don't think it's nanobots. I don't think it's 5G, electronuclear penetrating blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's mucous membranes being activated by the 5G radiation. I especially don't think it's nanobots, you guys. There's like 7 different versions of the COVID-19 is really some kind of nanobot technology. There was like a bunch of those for a hot minute. Like more than one, with different reasons why. And from whom. You see what I'm saying? Like, when there's 600,000 fucking conspiracy theories about the same thing, all plurping out at the same time, all sort of echo chambering each other, but not really adding up, then that's like obviously part of the psyop, right? And it's fake. And it's probably not very real in terms of what's actually going on. And Mother Nature, here's the backstop. Here's the, if you've been waiting for what the fuck is he trying to get to kind of moment, right here at 30-30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35. Mother Nature's a righteous bitch that knows how to kill you and doesn't need any Illuminati. Doesn't need, and I don't mean to be all negative or scary or dark or nothing. That's just the existential, scary fucking truth. It's what we've always lived in fear of. It's why we made up religions. It's why we mind fuck ourselves. Because we're gibbering meatbags that can talk and manifest in reality and fear the future in a way that trees and other living things with consciousness generally don't bother doing. And yes, I just said trees have consciousness. Put a pin in that. I think I've already done an episode or two. And if not, I'm overdue to do one. Because go Google The Secret Life of Trees. That's so like 4 years ago, you guys. Everything is consciousness. Stop hating on the rocks and the trees. They're not going to ever talk to you, but if you actually silence your mind and listen and meditate, you might actually hear your own self in them and them in you. Because it is a whole like John Lennon, we are he and they are we and we are all together kind of madness. In my humble opinion. I could be totally wrong. But given that, say loop back, isn't it ironic? We've looped full circle to remember what I was talking about on the cover of the thing that I made for today. This guy literally downplayed it, knowing it was bad. We now know. Thank you, Mr. Woodward. The Woodward tapes. This is so Nixonian. And I said that from like way back in the day. And it's almost like we really are fractal recursions of our own memories, of our own traumas, of our own bullshit. A tribalistic brotherhood and sisterhood of idiots sort of like repeating our own bullshit over and over again and manifesting the best and the worst of ourselves in each other because we're all sacred mirrors, right? This guy, the great orange selected one of the alt-right, called it a hoax and soft shoot his way into flip-flopping and turning on his own base after misleading them as if he wanted to get as many people exposed to it as possible on purpose. My question from the beginning with this guy was, is it stupidity or is it nefariousness? As one of my earliest memes will prove. So I forget what it says, and I'm not going to go dig it up right now. But it was hashtag ignorance, question mark, nefariousness, question mark, something like that. And it's just sort of like, I was really afraid to use his image at the time. Because I didn't know how powerful of a dictator he was going to try and become into. Good morning, Trumptopia. It's the pendulum swing of like hippie paradise and total tyrannical Saurus Rex that we're swinging back and forth between. And I personally think, here's my question. Here's the most, I keep trying to jump off this diving board and I'm hemming and hawing. The most probable thing that I think will actually happen. I've been thinking about this all day since the news broke. All evening. All day. It was already like late in the evening, Pacific time when it came out. It's a real virus. It is not an attempt to assassinate him. I do not think he will die. Although people have already probably called that. I'm sure that there's a betting pool in Vegas on that one now already, right? The odds, the bookies and the odds makers, whatever you call them, no disrespect, not trying to piss anybody off over there, but they're already like laying down their odds and like taking bets. I assure you. I think, and I'm not a betting man, and I'm not one to like pretend to know what's going to happen, and nowhere have I ever claimed to be enlightened, ever in my life. In fact, I have a whole mantra about how we're not enlightened yet, folks. No matter how enlightened you might feel, no one is so enlightened that they should stop meditating and stop working on themselves, because we're all still here bickering about it on fucking Facebook or on the pages of, the comment channels of my podcast or wherever we are. If you're still using devices and driving to work or Zoomcasting to work, your third eye's not completely 100% open. But, because I'm not a naysayer, my friends, and I am not a non-believer in this regard, because it's not a matter of belief. It's a matter of phenomenological experience. That is the organic birthright of everything that is alive and evolves into its upright, standing, talking iteration of itself. Because, that's obviously a fractal spiral there. Just like DNA is a fractal spiral. Just like fractal spirals everywhere. You put a pin in that if you don't understand what that means. You will eventually. I talk about it at length in multiple episodes. Just put a pin, big, fat, red, imaginary push pin. You know what I'm talking about? The kind you get at Staples. You've heard of that store, right? Office Depot. Office Max? I think they have them at Home Depot and Lowe's. And I'm technically supposed to be more of a Lowe's guy because, Home Depot donated too much money to Trump. But I'm also not one to give too much of a shit. Save your fucks, folks. Fucks are meant to be given. But shits, that's a whole nother story. Words matter. It's all spelling and magic, etc., etc. Put pins up on the board. And then join me here in this present moment. I think he's going to get sick enough to prove it to the world of deniers that, oh shit, I'm a denier because Donald Trump told me it was a hoax. And now he's really obviously stupid sick with it. And it's not a hoax. At least it's not totally fake and it doesn't seem to be nanobots. And if he can get it, and I hate to say this because I was thinking it and then somebody said it on the news and I'm like, fuck. Now I'm just going to be accused of echo chambering the news. But I'm like, I was thinking it before it happened. If that motherfucker could get sick, because he was getting tested daily, and right, and it's his own words were stupid malarkey, right? It's double reverse, negative, inverse, half pi, flip it inside out, and then stick it to the refrigerator kind of reverse psychology with him. And it always has been. Because he's just a malarkey blower. Obviously. He's a used car salesman. In debt, $421 million to, I don't know, multiple countries that aren't necessarily America's best friends. But I don't know, that's just all a big hoax. Like the Rona is. I think the most likely thing is that he's going to get really sick and recover and bounce back and be a bit effed up over it. Like, emotionally, perhaps. Psychologically, perhaps. Like, he's going to have PTSD. Or, like, I just heard that some 19-year-old got really sick with the Rona and it fucked with his brain and now he can't walk. And he never, like, he had it sort of in two waves. The first wave, he had the sort of, like, flu-like symptoms. And then the second thing was just, like, it fucked with him. And it was different, and it wasn't about the respirator. And then he suddenly couldn't walk anymore. And then, like, brain scans, because we don't know what else to do. And it was like, oh, it's in his brain, and it's fucking with his brain. And he was 19 years old, healthy AF. So imagine a delightfully delirious and slightly blathering, more so than already, because he was a little bit on the, like, are you, like, burned out on some drug? Too much serotonin? Like, what is going on with you? Kind of like, blah, with the word vomit sometimes. And then again, as the French would ask, aren't we all? And then here's what I worry about. Everybody else. Right? Because out of the array of coronavirus conspiracy theory content that I've encountered, it's a judgment from God, punishment from God, message from God, purging from God, and or any of the variants slash from Mother Earth, I'm slightly more inclined to believe than the rest of the stuff, right? Not to say that I believe, because I don't know. I'm not telling you that I believe that. Although I did earlier inform you that, where I stand on Mother Earth, categorically speaking. She's a womb. She's been given birth to us, and she's given birth to everything else, including all kinds of gnarly shit that is not fake and is not a hoax. I'll leave you with this, my friends, and another little bit of music to lead us out into the void tonight. In my humble opinion, and you can laugh at me all you want, mock me, and call me all kinds of names, you won't be the first. I've been called crazy my entire life. So, chuckle it up, chuckle nuts. What was I going to say before that, though? Something about Mother Earth and, like, an observation I've had in reality. Oh, yes. Mother Nature is real. Like, the living Earth is infinitely more important than any of the shenanigans in the realm of politics and societal ideology and, even philosophy and religion. Like, the earth and the green and the animals and the sky and all of that is infinitely more important. The air and the water that we breathe. Like, what good is a thriving economy if everything is so chock full of toxic shit that nothing can thrive? Not just at a pragmatic level, but at a reality itself. The very living fabric of the universe is a living array of consciousness. So infinitely more important than Trump and whatnot. But in the realm of that world, 42, ding, I'm too far away to the bell, but we're wrapping it up, folks. I want to leave you with this nugget. I haven't dropped this on my Instagram yet. It's kind of like a future nugget. Everyone's arguing about the greatest, what the real plague is and what the real hoax is. The greatest hoax of our time is convincing anybody and everybody that has been convinced out there, or is being convinced out there, that whatever they disagree with and whatever they choose to name out as a hoax is a hoax. That's the greatest hoax. Impregnating people in their brains with that mentality that should it cause enough cognitive dissonance, they're just going to debunk it by naming it a hoax and refusing to believe in it the way religious zealots will shout infidel and other insults. And, what's the gnarly one from American Christianity? I forget, but you get what I'm saying. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing everybody that whatever. The greatest hoax of our generation is convincing people that anything and everything they don't like, don't agree with, or have been told to dismiss as a hoax is a hoax, without actually bothering to check if it is or is not a hoax. Hoax thinking. Anti-reverse psychology hoax thinking. Whatever you want to call it. And conversely, because hoax implies fake, right? And there are very real things going on. Very real things going on the material level. Very real things going on at the intellectual level, because intellectual energy has a life force of its own. Thus, ideas can gain and then eventually wield power. And at the esoteric level, right? Like the spiritual level, which we may or may not have a very clear reading on, but is all sort of inherently wrapped up in, as far as I'm concerned, clause, asterisk, my humble opinion here, the entrapment of keeping us here, the treadmill of stupid waste of time, fuck each other in the face, stay on the war, keep being angry and self-righteous, undermining, and about destroying one another instead of healing each other. And that the birthright is that we too shall be born up and out of this womb. Eventually. And we can either go kicking and screaming, dragging our faces in the meat grinder merry-go-round of self-destruction, which is, in its material dimension, that which we call the system of oppression, the psyop of psyops, the echo chamber of echo chambers. And that system is not a grassroots or a top-down. It is a wired in the ethereal, egocentric level of corruption sort of event, phenomena. So whatever narrative you've been fed, if it's not allowing you, if it's not encouraging you, if it's not telling you to focus on your healing, to focus on your own mental liberation through the abdication of all ideological constructs, then it's spoon-feeding you something that's supposed to keep you on the treadmill. No offense. That is just my take on things after 3 decades, 3 centuries, 3 multi-millennia of observation. And it's quite right to be stuck in this loop, because it is quite a cathartic, cocooning sort of metamorphosis loop to be stuck on. But there is a line, right, in terms of how the mechanisms work. And if you're part of the problem, you're part of the problem. And it's keeping everybody down, here, trapped, blindered, enamored by the gore and the nonsense, and running on the treadmill of the meat grinder of life and death and rebirth and life and death and rebirth and waste of time. And endless religious, ideological construct, conflict, profiteering. Which is meaningless. Teams will change, enemies will exchange fire, the world will end over and over and over. That's how that game is played. You can't ever make any place great again, because it's an infinite slippery slope of endlessly sliding into self-destruction. And there is no, it was great once to go back to. Even the Atlantean folk didn't open their effing third eye. They knocked it all over to keep making money. That's why we're here. And I'll leave you with this last bit of news, breaking news, folks. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The NWO is not new. And it's not trying to get started. And Trump ain't fighting them. And you yourself, my friend, at an esoteric spiritual level, are already participant in it, until you liberate yourself from any and all ideological constructs and recommune with the womb herself, with the yonic vessel that is in Latin, mater matrix, right? Like the mother matrix. I made that up. That's not really in Latin. I'm sorry. I'm an ass sometimes. But there is a Latin thing. Look up the origin roots of the word matrix. It doesn't mean computer simulation. It means mother womb, and also many levels of like mathematic holographism and mathematical order. But I digress. I could be wrong. Could be wrong about all of it, my friends. But I don't think that Trump is masterminding any one bit of it. He's just another punch puppet in the Punch and Judy show of two wings, one bird political flippity floppity fluttering about and arguing, which, renders some good results, but is a pendulum swing experiment of how much will we tolerate. And lo and behold, I do think we get a voice, because I think it's all part of the grand, dance of Maya. And I don't mean Maya Indians. I mean Maya from, the Hindu context. The great illusion of the goddesses and the gods dancing in an infinite hallway of mirrors until we are reduced down into these objectifications. And that all of that theatricality, all of that reality TV show body politic is simultaneously a problem, right? That must be transcended, not destroyed. And an expression of our own illness, which means the only way to solve it is to address it in ourselves, collectively. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Well, folks, that bowl is cashed and dusted. In all seriousness, folks, I send my deepest regards and most sincerest thoughts and prayers, not in that cynical way of mocking them for thoughts and prayers, but in that real, legit, I'm an esoteric mystic thoughts and prayers, to everybody involved, everybody in the Trump family, everybody in the White House staff and extended, network of family and people and associates and et cetera, et cetera. And in general, at large, for everyone in Trumptopia and their friends and family who have been exposed to this, because I think we're about to get smacked in the face and poked in the rear end with an actual second wave. But I send my thoughts and prayers to the President of the United States and express my solidarity and support, right? Like, if we denounce white supremacy, like I didn't even talk about that on the show yet. Damn. For all the rambling I did. But yeah, I denounce white supremacy, always have. Hashtag join the challenge. There's a thing on the interwebs. Also, you know, when all is said and done, for all his buffoonery, he is the president, and he might get sick. And I will, in all earnestness, pray for his speedy recovery. And may he not suffer, and may no one in his family suffer. And may the nation sort of wake up and realize that people have been and will continue to suffer because this is a very real disease.